Today's lesson is called Solving Two-Step Inequalities. By the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to solve a multi-step inequality by undoing addition or subtraction, then multiplication. Or another way of saying it is that we'll be solving using PEMDAS backwards. Go and write down the directions, solve and graph the inequalities below, and go write down number 1 for right now. Now our goal is still the same. Our goal is to isolate this variable. But now we have negative 2 times x minus 1 is less than 11. How are we going to be isolating this variable? Well, we've actually already done this. We did this with equations. And how do we do that? We did that by using PEMDAS, the parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. But now we're going to be doing it backwards in order to isolate our variable. So if we take a look at our PEMDAS, we have to undo addition or subtraction first. Now if we take a look at our equation, we are subtracting 1, or we have a negative 1. So what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is 1. So I'd be adding 1s not just to one side, but to both sides. So my negative 2x doesn't change, so that just comes on down. What's negative 1 plus 1? That cancels out. Now my inequality sign is not going to change. And then what is 11 plus 1? 11 plus 1 is 12. So I undid my addition and subtraction. What's next? Multiplication or division. So we take a look and see. I have negative 2 times x. Remember, my goal is to get this x all by itself. So how do I undo multiplication? Well, its opposite is actually division. So let's divide negative 2 on both sides. So my 2's cancel out, my negatives cancel out. So x is all by itself. I've reached my goal. And then what's 12 divided by negative 2? That's negative 6. But key thing here, what do? We divided by negative 2 on one side and on both sides. What happens when we divide by a negative? Our inequality sign is going to flip. So don't forget to flip your inequality sign. So the answer is x is greater than negative 6. Now I've only solved one part of what I need to do. What else do I need to do? I also need to graph this. So let's draw our number line. So I draw a number line. Don't forget the arrows. Draw my 0. Now, where's my starting point? My starting point is going to be at negative 6. So I make a little dash, we put negative 6. Now, since it's my starting point, I'm just going to put an open circle for right now. Now we have to figure out what value of x is greater than negative 6, bigger. So I'm going to take a guess, and let's say 8 is bigger than negative 6. Is this true? Yes, this is a true statement. So 8 would be somewhere, oh, it's a bad 8. 8 would be somewhere over here, so I'll put a dot right there. That means my arrow should be going in this direction. I'm looking for values that are bigger than negative 6. Now, next question. Should it be an open or closed circle? For those of you who would like to see, is there an equal sign here? No, there is not. Since there's no equal sign, that means it should be an open circle. Now, if you're not sure whether or not it's going to be an open or closed circle, remember, there's an equal sign. That means negative 6 should equal negative 6. Or we should be able to prove that negative 6 is greater than negative 6. Is that a true statement? No. That's a false statement. Since it's a false statement, that's why it's going to be an open circle. So you should have this answer in your notes as well as this graph. So go and write down example number 2. Once again, with example number 2, we are going to be using PEMDAS, but backwards. And what's our goal? Our goal is still to isolate the variable. So if we're doing PEMDAS backwards, I have to do addition or subtraction first. So what am I doing? I'm adding 11, or it's a positive 11. So what's the opposite, or to undo it? We subtract 11 on both sides. Let's see, my x divided by 3 doesn't change. Those cancel out. My inequality sign doesn't change as well. Let's see, 31 minus 11 is going to be 20. So I've undone my addition or subtraction. What's next? Multiplication or division. So we take a look. I have x divided by 3. What's the opposite of division? Multiplication. So what do I need to multiply this by? Well, since I have a 3 in the denominator, I need to multiply a 3 in the numerator. On one side and on both sides. Don't forget to put a 1 over here. My 3's cancel out. What am I left with? My x, which was my goal. So I bring down my x. And let's see, 20 times 3 is going to give me 60. Now the question is, what happens to my inequality sign? Now I multiplied by a positive 3 and a positive 3, so is my inequality sign going to change? No, it is not. It's going to stay exactly the same because we're not multiplying by negative. So x is going to be less than 60, and this is going to be your answer. But I'm not done yet. Remember, we still have to graph this. So let's draw my number line. Don't forget your arrows. I start with 0. Now where's my starting point? My starting point is going to be 60. So let's draw a little dash. Call this 60. Now, since this is my starting point, I'm going to have an open circle for right now. Now, x is less than 60. X is smaller than 60. So I know that 10 is smaller than 60. This is a true statement. So 10 would be right around over here. So 10 has to be a number line, so I know my arrow is going the correct direction. Now the question is, open circle or closed circle? So let's test it out. Can 60 ever be less than 60? This is a false statement. Since it can't be, this right here is going to be the answer. So make sure it is in your notes. Now go and put 3 in your notes and go and try to solve it at your go and try to solve it by yourself, then discuss at your table groups. Now if you were solving at home, this would have been your answer. Now I'm going to write down number 4 and go try to solve that one on your own. If you're solving at home, this would have been your answer. Now go write down the directions, translate each equality, and go and try on your own and discuss your table groups what number 5 would look like. So if you're solving at home, either answer is acceptable. Now go and write down number 6. Go and write down number 6. If you were solving at home, either answer is correct. Now go and write down the directions as well as the triangle. Make sure you label each and every side, as well as have the perimeter is greater than 50, all in your notes. Now the problem is asking us to figure out what perimeter is greater than 50. Now we don't know all these values of y. So my first question is, what in the world, or how in the world do I find the perimeter? Remember, the perimeter, oops, the bad E. Perimeter is what we're doing. We're going to be adding what? All the sides. So if I'm adding all the sides, what am I going to be adding? I'm going to be adding my y plus 6, and my 3y minus 1. So what is this going to look like? It's really going to look like just what I said. We have y plus 6 plus 3y minus 1. Now normally we have it equal to when we have our number, but do we have an equal sign? No, we do not. What do we have? We have an inequality. And what's the inequality stuck with? It's stuck with that 50. So don't put an equal sign. What you're going to put is greater than 50. So, what in the world am I going to do? How do I isolate a variable if I have a variable here, here, and here? What I need to do, I need to combine my like terms. Don't forget, there's an invisible 1 in front of these y's. I have 1y plus 1y plus 3y. That is going to give me a 5y. Then I have a plus 6 and a negative 1. With 6 minus 1, we get a 5. Now positive or negative? Positive. My inequality sign isn't going to change. Now I'm running out of room, so we're going to move this to a new slide. So 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. So I still have 5y plus 5 is greater than 50. I haven't changed it, just moved it. Now we're still doing exactly the same thing we've been doing this entire time. Our goal is to isolate this variable. But how am I going to isolate it? By doing my PEMDAS backwards. So that means I need to add or subtract first. I happen to be adding 5. So we're going to subtract 5 on both sides. My 5y doesn't change. Those cancel out. It's greater than, we get 45. So then what's my next step? My next step is to undo multiplication and division. Now this is 5 times y. How do I do multiplication? I undo it through division. So let's divide 5 on both sides. 5 divided by 5 is 5, so that goes down. So y comes down. Now 45 divided by 5 is going to be 9. Now here's a big question. I'm dividing by 5, dividing by 5. What's going to happen to my inequality sign? Well, since these are technically positives, I'm not dividing by negative, nothing is going to happen to my inequality sign. It's going to come on down, not changing, and this is going to be the answer. So I'm looking for values of y that are greater than 9, and I have solved for y. Now I'd like a two-sentence summary of what we learned today. We learned how to solve a multi-step inequality. What steps do we have to do? We have to undo addition and subtraction, then multiplication and division, and what happens when we multiply or divide by negative. You can't forget to flip your inequality sign. Remember, we're solving this by doing PEMDAS backwards.